I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
You open the fridge, there's nothing there. So what's it gonna be? Greasy pizza? Sad drive-through burgers? Dish by Blue Apron is for nights like that. These are the pre-made meals of your dreams. At least 20 grams of protein, no artificial flavors or colors, no chopping, no cleanup, no guilt. Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Welcome to NQAT Daily. I'm Ed, today with Dominic Booth. How's it going, Dominic?
Good, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I've done my United colours for today after inspiration from you in the last 2 episodes.
I've got like 2 of these long sleeve tops and about 25 shirts. So yeah, glad to see.
I'm lacking the long sleeve top. Yeah, they're good.
I need to get a few more colours, I think, actually. I do quite like those, the blue vintage ones with the 7, except I saw Brent wearing one and I couldn't possibly do it now because it's been ruined for me.
Yeah.
I keep getting asked on actually Spotify comments to introduce my guests better because I've just randomly dropped people into the feed without giving them a real bio. So will you tell us about yourself? Give me the 30 seconds to a minute on Dominic.
Yeah, you did say in the first one I was on, but I guess you need to reintroduce yourself again and again on online platforms, don't you? I'm Dominic Booth. I'm a United fan and freelance journalist with The Guardian and sometimes BBC Sport, and long-time sufferer now, but born in the absolute vintage Ferguson era. First season I can remember is 99, hence the shirt today. And yeah, the last 10 years have been a bit more interesting, haven't they?
Well, they certainly have. And one area that is particularly interesting is the goalkeeping situation, which is our topic for the day. Andre Onana dropped a clanger against Brighton. Actually, 2, strictly speaking, I think. But the really bad one where he fumbled the ball is his 10th error leading to a goal in 2 seasons with the club. Not awesome. Got to say, Dave had 17 in 12 years. And I'm guessing they're clustered around his first season, his last 2 or so. It's a challenging topic because he was bought for a particular reason, which is his footballing skills, and yet we've barely ever seen that. And it's
we don't see it a lot, do we?
We don't. So yeah, how do we get into this situation? First, what's your assessment of Onana and where we're at right now? Do we need to really worry? Should we be thinking about spending money?
I've been thinking about this a lot because I think if you hadn't asked me this question a few weeks ago, I honestly wouldn't have batted an eye. I would have put it so low down United's list of things they need to do that it probably wouldn't have been worthy of discussion. And I know some people have had a problem with Onana for a long time. Some people, I feel, have not given him a chance from day one. They've been sat in Camp Dave and they've not been willing to move from that. I think Onana, we know that he's prone to an error, but he's also capable of some really good goalkeeping. And that's why these recent mistakes, the Forest game and the Brighton game, I'm missing another big error in the last few weeks. Those 2 stand out as he made multiple errors in one game, didn't he?
Well, let one over his head against Wolves as well didn't help.
Oh, yeah, the Olympico, as we're now supposed to call it. That was never called an Olympico. I don't know where that's come from. Anyway, I do think Onana is becoming an issue, and there's a sliding scale at United at the moment, isn't there? And Ruben Amorim's got enough on his plate. So how much this is something United are looking at internally, I think it is up for discussion and debate. I don't think it is, and I certainly don't think they'll be after signing a goalkeeper this month. But you can't have goalkeepers making as many errors as this, really, especially often key ones at key times. And United are vulnerable enough from set pieces for having a goalkeeper like Onana, who I think Daniel says it sometimes on the podcast, he doesn't like the way he keeps goal. I think that's quite a good way of putting it. It sort of puts the fear of God in everyone else in the defence, doesn't it? And that's where we are. I mean, there's loads of comparisons to be made, isn't there, with De Gea, and that's the one that people leap and make. But I think you've got to look forward and not back. I don't think that was a mistake to make that switch when United did it.
Yeah.
I actually think they should have done it earlier.
Yeah, I think you're right. They've got the yips, and his confidence went, and he seemed to lose focus in games as a result. And all the errors we saw for Dave seemed to be very similar in that he let really basic things go through him or past him, and we're like, how on earth did he manage to let that through when he could pull off the most brilliant athletic saves that you've ever seen? So I actually think he got to the point where it was probably right to let Dave go. The problem is they picked a keeper for a particular style of build-up that Ten Hag then abandoned almost immediately because he didn't have confidence in it. And United went to this transitional, quite direct style, so you brought in this footballing keeper to punt it long. And it was just really, really weird. And he was never awesomely clean. Onana at Inter, I think Dan especially has expressed some concern about him from that point of view. I think the thing is, if you look at the data this season, especially the first sort of half of the season until the last couple of weeks or so, Onana's post-shot XG against save ratio, so the amount above the average keeper he was over 5, which is really, really, really high, right? So It saved more than 5 goals than he should have done against the average keeper. And that really, really matters when you think about points tallies and qualifying through the group phase of the Europa League and all of that. It's just that errors seem to count, at least in everyone's mind and perception, an awful lot more than the saves that the average keeper wouldn't have made. And it's true, I think, because the manager can lose confidence in him, the players can lose confidence in him. Apparently, Andre keeps it, he doesn't just let it go. He dwells on it, he stews on it, and he thinks about it for a long time, and it impacts him. I think you can see some of that on the pitch as well. And so that's the problem, isn't it? Manager, players, the player himself, and the fans start to lose confidence with errors in a way that you wouldn't do if you had, say, a less brilliant keeper or a more average keeper who didn't pull off the wonder saves. The one that's right in the corner, he didn't get away with his fingertips or something like that, but didn't make the errors and might actually have worse data, but isn't making 10 errors leading to a goal across 2 seasons, which is really quite a lot.
And it's the defence that he's playing in front of, and the whole team that he's playing behind, not in front of, sorry, that he's playing behind, that you have to consider with Onana. I mean, this is a United team which has been woeful defensively for 2 years, really, at least 1.5 seasons, I think, since Onana came in. And you think about the defence that De Gea actually had in his last season, I think it's one of the best defences we've actually had post-Ferguson. When you think about Varane, still at his peak, Martinez when he first came in was excellent, Luke Shaw was fit for most of that season and was flying for England as well. And De Gea made big errors in big games. In the 7-0 against Liverpool, he was basically invisible. He let everything in. In the Sevilla game, in the Europa League, he made some big errors which cost United that tie. And Onana hasn't made the sort of high-profile errors. It's just the sort of everyday errors, I suppose. They're the ones that have undermined him.
Well, United haven't had too many big games to really make the super high profile.
Yeah, to beat the big. Yeah.
He did last season. He hasn't
made a big rick, like in a cup final or anything like that.
True, yes. He did make a few errors in last season's Champions League group stage, which could well have cost United qualification. Not that we were going anywhere, particularly in that. Yeah. I mean,
cost United the last 16 exit at best. That.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it is a really challenging one because if you think about United's likely budget and the fact that we're still working through the last 3 years of really strategic errors on buying players, the club. I mean, I mentioned it before. The club owes £200 million in transfers in this financial year. I think we've got about 40 something due in. or £400 million in transfers overall. There's obviously £537 million of net debt. So that's debt minus cash on hand, which isn't very much at the moment. So, long-winded way of saying there isn't loads of money in the kitty, even if we're ticked over to a new PSR year, and obviously our post June the 30th this year will be into a new PSR year. So in theory, the club could go spend money on quite a few players, as long as you accept that the 2 years following that you won't. It's just the practicality of bringing in 2 wing backs, another central midfielder, and probably a striker who actually scores goals, means that either United do a lot of very creative deals and sell players that it might be dumb to sell, or we don't spend a lot of money, which means the goalkeeper's probably a long way down the priority list, even if it's the confidence in Onana is starting to eat away. And there's no confidence in Bayindir at all.
No, that's the problem as well, isn't it? The number 2 is a very similar goalkeeper in a way. It looks like he's capable of really good shot stops at times and also a big error. So what do you do there? I think Bayindir may get a chance to start against Rangers on Thursday. I would give him another chance. I think, we probably need to see more of him, really. We haven't seen a huge amount of him. And I don't know if that would dent Onana's confidence, but Amorim doesn't seem too worried about denting the player's confidence at the moment. I think he just wants results.
Well, he even suggested that Bayindir is the cup goalkeeper. So, although that hasn't really been true of the Europa League to date, has it? I mean, Bayindir played against Arsenal. Who else has he played against this season? Not many.
He's not played in Europe, I don't think.
No,
I think Onana has played in Europe.
He hasn't really been the cup goalkeeper, but it was that kind of suggestion. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he played against Rangers on Thursday. And of course, he personally had a very good game after half-time against Arsenal, in which he pulled off some very key saves, saved a penalty, 2 penalties, and became the hero. Before that, he was all over the place, and the kicking was woeful, and he looked shaky and nervous. And he, of course, let his own Olympico in against Spurs in the League Cup. Never a good look for him.
However, United conceded 2 goals straight from corners in the same season. I mean,
because we're the banter club. We're the banter club. That's why.
Cursed FC. Cursed FC.
I did my Substack this week on the worst United teams ever, because Amorim called United maybe the worst Manchester United team in history, and sort of caveated it afterwards. And there are plenty worse teams than United, but we're in the social media age, and so everything is for lols, isn't it? And so we truly are in the banter era, and every time we think we're going to come out of it, out the other side to something else, some new calamity happens, and it just happens to be the keeper is real point of focus. And
it's a serious point, I think. Like after the Ten Hag era and all these signings in the Ten Hag era, the club is still in a massive recovery mode from that. And I think the Onana signing is part of it, because
it is.
They just splashed out big on players that they shouldn't have been so sure about, if you know what I mean. They shouldn't have been so sure as to spend 80 million on Anthony, 70 million on Højlund, 60 million plus mega wages on Casemiro. And Onana is the same. He's like you said at the top, he fits a specific type of system, which United haven't played since the first 2 games of the Ten Hag era. Amorim's playing a different system altogether. You'd think that in time he'd probably want his own goalkeeper to play that, because most modern coaches do. Look at Pep when he ditched Joe Hart and then got Claudio Bravo in for a disastrous year, and eventually found the right person in Ederson. Klopp had Loris Karius for the first few years, and look how that turned out. So,
well, it was wonderful, great times.
Yeah. Oh, for those times, when they had such flaws. But United now are just lumbered with all these players, and some of them will probably stick around and make something of themselves at the club, you would hope. But we're starting to see the exodus start already, aren't we? Anthony going on loan, and Rashford, and maybe even Garnacho going. So they're all the Ten Hag era players that have now got to be got rid of, and Onana will be the last bastion, won't it? Really?
Yeah, it's you get fucked twice basically by buying very expensive players on mega contracts for lots of money, I mean, it sounds obvious, but you get the pain when you spend the money, and then you get the pain when you try and get rid of them because no one will pay the fee, the inflated fee, and clubs are reluctant to pick up the wages as well. Now, in Anthony's case, and I do, by the way, want to do a conversation at some point about the worst wilderness years transfers, because that'll be a great listicle, wouldn't it? Like, the top 10, but Anthony's got to be really near the top of that, if not the top. So
there's going to be a good fight for that top 10, though, isn't there? Really,
there is 95 million euros, so just over 80 million pounds for Anthony, which is a 16 million pound a year PSR cost on the amortized transfer fee. Which, if you think about United's overall wage budget, you really have to think about it like this. And this is why it's such a massive error. They know this, right? They know the numbers. If you spend that much money, as you did under Ten Hag, coming back to your point, then there is a cost to pay in the later years of that cycle. Like, you just can't spend the same money again. And Amorim's finding that out now. So £16 million a year on the transfer fee amortized. His wages aren't horrendous, apparently. I mean, you can go look this up on Capology. No one trusts that data, but he's unlikely to be in the top 10 earners at the club. Let's call it 150 a week or something like that. Betis look like they're going to cover about half that, maybe a bit less than half that, with no loan fee and some bonuses if they qualify for Europe and stuff like that, right? So once again, as we did with Sancho, we are paying another club to use our players, and there's no real benefit.
And as we might do for Rashford as well.
And that's almost certainly what's going to happen with Rashford, in which it'll be a loan with no obligation, or maybe it'll be a Chelsea-style deal where there's a loan with an obligation if a certain amount of games are played. I think Sancho only had to finish around 14th or something like that, Chelsea, for the Sancho deal to be triggered. In the case of Sancho, his on-the-books cost is about what Chelsea are paying. So there's not an accounting hit. There's obviously a cash hit with Sancho, but there's not an accounting penalty. With Rashford, his on the books capital cost is 0 because he's an academy player. So anything is profit, any kind of fee. And obviously you get the wages off the books if someone will cover it. I mean, there's a good chance United will have to pay him off, which will obviously reduce the amount we get in fees. So that's not great to get rid of a player who 2 years ago scored 30 goals. It's incredible, really. Like, it's very rare that kind of drop off happens or that kind of loss happens, but it looks like it's going to happen to United. I don't think we should all think about who's at fault there: player, club, strategic decisions, managerial decisions, and so on. But just the that puts it in context, like how badly United spent and managed their squad over the last 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And the pain that we're feeling as a result now, which means if United want a new keeper, if Amorim wants a new keeper, they're going to have to find a club for Onana in order to get some kind of fee in to bring another player in. And it's a super difficult one because obviously top keepers are rare and top keepers cost quite a bit of money. It was 50 odd million for Onana, wasn't it?
And every United transfer, like you say, seems super difficult. It's super difficult to get people in for a reasonable price and on reasonable wages because it's United. Teams inflate their asking price. Agents inflate the players' wage demands. And it's super difficult to get people out because people's reputations get tarnished at Manchester United. Players get worse at Manchester United. They have done for 10, 11 years now. Andrew Onana looks like potentially being the latest example. A few months ago, I might have said maybe he's actually maintaining his level. He's one of those rare ones. But if it continues like this, then, like you say, United will be struggling to find buyers. They might have to loan him out. They might have to take a big hit on his value. It's just an absolute mess. It really winds me up when I see these transfers linked and the amounts that are being spoken about. United are getting rid of people for absolute pittance. Alanga goes to Forest for nothing. We get rid of Fred to Fenerbahce for about the same amount we paid to get Amrabat for 1 year. And then we're signing Onana for 45 million, which didn't seem ridiculous because he was a Champions League final goalkeeper, but there's no way that that the club will be selling him for that. So it's just maddening.
Well, especially when you think that the reported transfer fee for Patrick Dorgu, a left back who's not got an awful lot of experience at the top level, maybe a brilliant player, we'll see. But reportedly, Lecce are asking for 40 million euros, which might well be bigger than the fee United get for Rashford, which again points to how clubs think about. One, it points to inflated fees for United, which is an easy one to deal with, really, because you just walk away for deals and everyone gets the message. But it also purports to like how clubs start thinking about the whole package, like the wages you pay for a player plus the transfer fee. As Zlatan once said, like the higher the fee, the lower the wages, right? And that's a simplification, but it's a truism because you have to think about the whole package in PSR terms. Of course, it's not reported like that in the media often, but it's good for fans to start thinking about that, and definitely for the club. And the other thing that United have done very badly on the transfer side of things is set new highs for the ceiling. And there's this truism and saying in football is, you set a new ceiling, you set a new floor. And because the wages are relative to other players in the squad, it's rare for clubs to have a massive disparity between the bottom earners, unless they're academy players, and the top earners. Right? So if you bring them in, it creates squad problems, and of course, everyone knows everyone's wages. Basically, we have a good knowledge about that in the game, and of course, agencies are shared between players quite often. And so it just, you put Casemiro on £350,000 a week, you're going to get a new floor for the reserve keeper you decide to bring in, and so on. And it creates a real problem. United, in terms of the wage budget, have been trying to bring it down. I think it's probably about £180 million a year, which is probably a good 70 million down on its peak.
It's no easy task to bring it down, but given the market and given United, how desperate United are, they don't have Champions League football to offer players.
Well, that's
trying to get people cheaper.
Yeah,
it has a little bit. But you think about Eriksen, the only player United have signed properly on a free for a good few years, but he's on sky-high wages. But that's the only way United thought they could do that deal. There must have been other clubs lining up Eriksen at the time, but it feels like a bit of a sub-story when United fans say, "Oh, United tax, there's an extra few million on players," but it is a making. They've made their own bed in this situation. And Patrick Dorgu, a player that I'm not that familiar with, for that price, United shouldn't be countenancing it, and they have the power to pull away from that and say no thanks.
Yeah, they do.
Go and get someone else. They've got a list. They once boasted they had a list of 800 right backs, and they ended up on Aaron Wan-Bissaka that they looked at.
Who was, had one good season in the Premier League. Yes, United were using an external data agency for that one. I know who they are, but I won't shit on them because the CEO there's a nice fella. But it's...
Speaking of data and speaking of goalkeepers, it's good to get back on topic. I once did a bit of a United podcast myself a couple of years ago, and me and my mate Alex, who knows his football stats, who has worked in data analytics, came up with 3 names as potential De Gea replacements. And Onana wasn't among those 3 names. But the 3 names now are not doing too badly. It was David Raya, who at the time was at Brentford.
Yeah.
It was Robert Sanchez, who was at Brighton. Mm-hmm. And it was Giorgio Mamardashvili, who is on his way to Liverpool from Valencia.
Who's
didn't go for any of them.
Who's had it was absolutely brilliant last season, Mamardashvili.
Yeah. And in the Euros.
And in the Euros, his footwork's not quite the same. I mean, obviously they're playing a slightly different style of football now, Liverpool under Slot, but it'll be interesting to see whether Liverpool fans take to him as a replacement for Alisson, who is presumably off to the Saudi Pro League, I would think. But yes, I mean, that's a good list of 3 keepers there. Raya's done much better than I thought he would. I was not sure about him as a keeper, a good footballer, but he seems to have grown into that role in a way that Aaron Ramsdale didn't. His ego was inflated, but the quality was not quite the same. I mean, of course, United got rid of Dean Henderson, who's a perfectly sound keeper and doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but maybe doesn't make the brilliant saves either. And he's decent with his feet, but not brilliant. He probably found a good place at Palace, I would say, there.
Yeah, I wasn't against United maybe keeping Henderson and giving him a bit of a chance. I know that's kind of sacrilege to some fans. There seems to be a bit of an agenda against Henderson, I think, since those comments that he made when he didn't start the season under Solskjaer. Yeah, and he dug the club out, didn't he? But he has done okay. And he is sort of a similar-ish goalkeeper to Onana, I think, in that he can do the sublime, but he's also capable of a major error. So maybe United could have just saved 40 million and stuck Henderson in there. I think maybe we'd still be in the same position now, thinking about another goalkeeper after that. It is so hard to find someone who fits a manager and who fits the style and who is so error-free, or at least makes minimum errors.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that.
Well, that's a good way to end it. It would help everybody, player and club and manager, if Andre Onana had a brilliant second half of the season, made 0 errors and showed the best of himself, as well as the footballing side of things. Given the list of priorities, a new goalkeeper shouldn't be near the top, but it might have to be if he continues on like this. Dominic, great to talk to you again. Thank you very much. Listeners, viewers, wherever you are, thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.